In the middle of Finland lies the university city of Jyväskylä, with the municipality of Laukaa right next to it. At the very heart of Laukaa is the small village of Tarvaala. The village is surrounded by forests and nestled between three large lakes. It has a long history. At its center is a settlement site over 5,000 years old and Finland's largest Stone Age burial ground, where the deceased were painted with red ochre. The same people once created the rock paintings of Saraakallio. Beside the burial ground lie the remains of the first church of both Laukaa and Jyväskylä, dating back to the 16th century. Beneath the village runs a pipeline that carries clean drinking water 30 kilometers to the city of Jyväskylä. The place where a church stood 500 years ago is now covered with spruces, but on Christmas Eve, over 100 people gather among them to listen to the Christmas sermon and sing hymns. In the center of Tarvaala, there is also a Wild West-style saloon, Black Raven. Tarvaala is like an old oak tree, a great tree whose core has hollowed out. The following story briefly recounts the history of the world around Tarvaala over thousands of years.
The history of Tarvaala is a tapestry woven with the threads of time, stretching back to the very dawn of human existence. From the earliest traces of life to the pivotal moments that shaped its destiny, Tarvaala's past is a journey through the ages filled with mystery, discovery, and transformation. Did people live in Tarvaala 200,000 years ago before the last ice age? Possibly as suggested by the remains found in the Susiluola cave near Kristianankaupunki in Karijoki, which are believed to be the work of Neanderthals. The Neanderthals mysteriously disappeared from Europe during the Ice Age, about 30,000 years ago, replaced by modern humans. They may have also lived in Laukaa. However, the landforms were entirely different back then, making it hard to determine which parts of today's landscape remain unchanged as the ice sheets reshaped the terrain. Perhaps a cave in the bedrock remains. Around the same time Neanderthals disappeared, the ancestors of Native Americans migrated to the Americas via the Bering Land Bridge, and Australia's indigenous population became isolated from the rest of the world. The Ice Age in Finland ended about 10,000 years ago, and new settlers soon arrived. During the late Ice Age, when Finland, Sweden and Denmark were still under ice, the first nearby cultures existed in Antrea, Estonia, and the Komsan culture, along the Arctic Ocean in the far north. The Komsan culture is often linked to the Sami people, regarded along with the Basques as Europe's oldest peoples. After the ice retreated, most of the land was submerged underwater. The first inhabitants of Laukaa settled in Vehniä, where the land was first exposed. Vehniä is home to Finland's oldest Stone Age settlement, found at Nuotamaki. Birch was the dominant tree species, as spruce had not yet reached Finland. Globally, no major civilizations had emerged at this time. The Bering Strait formed, and migration from Asia to the Americas ceased. In Tarvaala, people could first walk on dry land near what is now Kulunmaki. Around 6,000 years ago, the Aumamaki Hills in Hartikka formed an island where humans may have already lived. This theory is supported by the ancient rock paintings at Saraakallio, located just 4 kilometers away, which may date to this period and are possibly the oldest in Fennoscandia. Saraakallio paintings were also created around this time. Globally, new civilizations arose in Mesopotamia, Egypt and China. In Finland, the climate was warmer than today, resembling conditions in northern Germany or the Netherlands. Hazel and noble hardwoods like oak were common. By 3600 BCE, spruce had arrived from the east, gradually replacing many broadleaf trees, though wild lime or pani remained abundant. During this period, the first Indo-European speaking peoples reached Europe. In Crete and Greece, the first European civilizations arose, only to be destroyed by Indo-European invaders, the Dorians, around 1100 BCE, shortly after the Trojan War. In the Indus Valley, the Dravidian Mohenjo-Daro culture emerged in 2400 BCE, but was overrun by Aryans in 1500 BCE, who established a new culture with Sanskrit and the caste system. In China, the Yellow River civilization evolved into the Shang dynasty around 1600 BCE. Meanwhile, the Babylonians built the Tower of Babel, Hammurabi codified his laws, and Abraham began his journey, which continues to influence global events today. In Britain, Stonehenge was constructed between 2000 and 1500 BCE. Finland's dominant culture until 2000 BCE was the comb ceramic culture, named for the comb-like patterns used to decorate pottery. In Laukaa, slash-and-burn agriculture began, and pollen studies reveal that barley cultivation for beer started around 1000 BCE. Around 2500 BCE, Finland's coastline was raided by the battle axe culture Indo-European migrants who eventually settled permanently, merging with the original population to form the Kukanen culture. The transition to the Bronze Age began and the climate cooled, becoming similar to today. By 1 CE, Laukaa's history remains sparsely documented, but globally, major civilizations rose. Located just 4 kilometers away, which may date to this period and are possibly the oldest in Fennoscandia. Finland lacks older rock engravings, but they are abundant in Karelia near Lake Onega. At this time, Finland was home to the Suomusjärvi culture. Proto-Uralic languages, from which Finnish descends, were likely spoken in northern Europe and possibly as far south as Central Europe, according to the contested theories of Kalevi-Wiik. Almamäki was surrounded by the freshwater Ancillus Lake, which predated the Baltic Sea. As the climate warmed, pine and noble hardwoods became more common. Globally, dramatic changes occurred. The Ancillus Lake turned into the brackish Baltic Sea, and the Great Päijänne Lake, which drained into the sea near Pitipudas, formed. Around 4100 BCE, the Salpaselka Ridge broke, rapidly lowering the water level. Around the same time, the first high civilization, the Sumerians, emerged in Mesopotamia. By 3000 BCE, the Hartica area had become a hammer-shaped peninsula connected by a narrow isthmus. The shoreline ran near modern Kaupila. From this period, the region's red ochre burial sites originate, and Kirkkoniemi is thought to have been a central winter village where people gathered in the cold months. The Western calendar begins, and this era encompasses the birth of Christianity, the Hun invasions of Europe under Attila, the subsequent migrations of Germanic and Slavic peoples in Europe, the fragmentation of Celtic culture, the fall of the Roman Empire, and the emergence of Byzantium. Elsewhere, the Persian Empire is reborn. Ptolemy introduces the geocentric worldview in Egypt, and China also faces barbarian invasions, splitting into 3 kingdoms. During this time, however, a significant invention is made, the compass. Buddhism gains ground in India and China, and even reaches the mysterious and isolated Japan. In the Americas, the most advanced civilization is still centered in Mexico, but on the Yucatan Peninsula, another culture, the Maya, begins to rise. From this period, information about Finland and Laukaa is sparse, and few monuments remain, as settlements were constructed from ecologically sustainable, naturally decomposing wood. At this time, it is known that Finno-Ugric languages were spoken across the vast forested regions of Russia, stretching from the Urals and the Moscow area to the Baltic shores of present-day Latvia. Christianity even reached Japan by now, but was banned there. Meanwhile, China reunified during the Tang dynasty. In the Middle East, Islam emerges and Arab culture begins its expansion. In the Americas, the Maya civilization flourishes, creating a calendar more accurate than anything in Europe, and achieving advanced astronomy before mysteriously collapsing, leaving temples buried in the jungle for nearly 1,000 years. This period sees major global events: the rise of Christianity, the fall of the Roman Empire, and the emergence of the Byzantine Empire. In Asia, the compass is invented and Buddhism spreads widely. The Mayan civilization flourishes in Central America with advanced astronomy and calendar systems, though their culture mysteriously declines. Meanwhile, the Viking Age brings Nordic explorers to Greenland, Vinland, America, and various parts of Europe. In Finland, Viking raids keep the southern coast sparsely populated, while inland areas, including Laukaa, remain undisturbed. Finnish and Estonian fleets reportedly destroy the Swedish Viking capital, Sigtuna, around 1000 CE. Globally, innovations like gunpowder and printing emerge in China. Empires such as the Mongol and Ottoman dominate, while Europe experiences the Crusades and the discovery of America by Columbus in 1492. In Finland, the Catholic Church establishes dominance through crusades, making Finland part of the Swedish realm. Defensive hill forts appear in Heim and Karelia, and Laukaa remains a hunting ground for both Heim and Karelia peoples. Local Sami populations face displacement due to territorial conflicts. Gustav Vasa initiates the settlement of wilderness areas in Finland, including Laukaa. The first permanent houses in Laukaa emerge by the mid-1500s with settlers from Heim and Savo. Globally, the Protestant Reformation reshapes Europe, the Inca Empire rises in Peru, and scientific progress accelerates. By the 17th century, Laukaa witnesses growth, but the Great Northern War devastates Finland, including Laukaa, with residents hiding from Cossack raids in places like Hittenhauta. Finland endures wars and political upheaval, including the Swedish-Russian Wars, the famine of 1865, and eventual independence in 1917 after Russian rule. The 20th century brings modernization, wars like the World Wars and the Winter War, and technological innovation. Nokia becomes a global leader in telecommunications, while Finland earns recognition as one of the happiest countries in the world. Laukaa transitions from a hunting region to a modern Finnish municipality, adapting to global changes while maintaining its historical